Max Barbakow directed the Hulu film Palm Springs. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, here to ask you, Max, how do you how did you present a film about a time loop that wasn't repetitive for the audience?
That's a good question. The genesis of the idea came from a place. Andy CR and I went to AFI, to film school together, and wanted to really make a film coming out of school that kind of involved everything we ever wanted to see in a film. So, there were influences that stem from Ace Ventura to The Great Beauty to Paris, Texas to Dumb and Dumber. And it really didn't start as a time loop movie. So I think a lot of the energy that makes it unique just came from wanting to entertain ourselves and each other. And then once we stumbled upon this time loop idea, which was an extension of kind of the characters, and an attempt to put two commitment phobes scared of vulnerability, stuck with each other and themselves in their versions of hell, which would be a wedding in Palm Springs that felt a little generic and like a Pinterest board came to life. That's when the time loop came in. And once that happened, it really was about, all right, this is tried and true. This is a very vibrant subgenre. It has one of the best, movies and comedies of all time in Groundhog Day in it. How do we do that? And it just, let's go for it. Let's make it different. It was never about seeing, at least visually, the same moments play over and over again. It was always kind of shooting stuff from the perspectives of the characters as they opened up to themselves and each other, and playing with the same scene shot in different ways. And we really wanted it to feel like a roller coaster, something that was tonally blended, that was emotionally raw, but really funny. And yeah, you never want to do something that feels repetitive in the wrong ways. So we just tried our best to make it feel alive in all our favorite ways.
And I guess it's is interesting, since it didn't start out as a time loop movie. Do you reckon that had an impact on the final product, that you sort of came up with the characters before the concept?
Yeah, I think that that's everything to me. That's what I love to see in films, and I think that's why people go to see stuff and latch on to things are the people at the center of these worlds, and the things that they feel through these people. There were a bunch of different versions of the script that were false starts that really allowed us to figure out the characters of Niles and Sarah. And once we figured them out, it was really about kind of getting past the time loop as quick as possible in that first act, and really gradually stripping away. And I think you feel this when you watch the movies. You get away from the wedding world, kind of like all the artifice and all the color and all the noise of that party, and it becomes this two-hander in the desert where these people are kind of learning to open up to one another. That was kind of always the core of the movie, and my favorite scenes are those scenes where we've earned the latitude and all the hijinks and the pyrotechnics and the nihilism to kind of sit back and just have Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti just kind of play a game of emotional ping pong, so to speak, like around a campfire, tripping on mushrooms.
Yeah. I think there's sort of a bit of a balance here. In one sense, it is a film about a time loop, and in some ways I imagine you can relate, because as a director you get to do things over and over again until you get them right. But on the other hand, this film had quite a tight shooting schedule, so you really did you feel like you could relate to sort of the characters getting to relive things, or did you feel like there was a real time pressure that there wasn't for the characters?
It was so nuts how quickly we shot this movie, but it's a tribute to everybody in front of and behind the camera who brought it, that we were able to accomplish that. If anything, yes, the repetitive, I actually would say it didn't feel that repetitive, just because we had so little time that when we knew that we had a take that was good within a scene, we would just try a different version of it. So what ended up happening is we just had a lot of versions, different versions of the same scene, and a lot of fun to be had in the edit. But it's also the mark of, I think, something worthwhile is when you look at the call sheet in the morning and you're like, oh, we're doing all this different crazy stuff today. It's going to be so fun. Like no day felt the same as another, just because there's so much going on in this movie.
What was the most enjoyable scene to shoot?
Any part of the montage where Andy and Kristen terrorize the wedding, and they go ride the whip in the car, and they steal the airplane. That nihilistic montage where they're falling in love in the middle of the movie. Those moments were kind of scheduled throughout the shoot, and those are always kind of fun to go sneak away and do. I love shooting the dance. I loved shooting the scene with Andy and Kristen around the fire in the desert. It was all super fun. But if I had to choose one, I would say probably that scene in the desert where Andy and Kristen are kind of opening up to one another in the campfire.
Yeah. What is the biggest sort of joy and the biggest challenge of directing Andy Samberg?
Biggest joy is just that he is incredibly smart and an incredible creative partner. So it's really, and from the get-go, that was the case when Andy Ciara and I first met with The Lonely Island. It was incredible to meet these people who completely understood what we were going for with the script, and dared us to kind of dream bigger with it and wanted to come on board and help us realize it on a grander scale. So, and that extended, throughout shooting. I think the biggest challenge of working with Andy was just like how he's incredibly quick, So like you're talking about doing all these takes. We'd work in a way where he'd want to do different versions of them, like really quickly right off the bat. And this movie so intricately designed that my wheels would always be turning, kind of like, did we get what we needed in this shot so we could go do the other one? But he was great. I mean, there's no complaints working with that guy. It was such a pleasure.
What surprised you most in making the film?
I think I was surprised just how we were able to get, people involved that really got what we were going for across the board and invested in it. Because like you said, it was a very quick shoot, so there wasn't a lot of time. But when you have like-minded people with the same twisted sense of humor and the same kind of emotional vulnerabilities or understanding of kind of the emotions that are at the core of this film, you're able to kind of like skirt conversations in prep where you don't have to explain a sensibility to them. They just get them. So I was very pleasantly surprised that everybody on board, cast, crew, kind of got the tone of the movie, which was great. And then I guess the finished project, or the finished product, what really surprised me kind of was just, I don't know how it kind of played as the script read, which I know doesn't really happen a lot, but it's something that I'm proud of because we put a lot of work into that thing.
Do you reckon that's partly a result of you and Andy having such a close relationship? Andy Ciara,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would this thing was born out of a very long wedding season that started to feel repetitive, and Andy getting married and me feeling very far away from that and kind of reconciling both ends of that emotional spectrum, and acting as each other's therapists in a room as we tried to figure out what this movie was going to be, and just, pouring over it year after year and thinking about kind of each moment within. So yeah, I definitely say that's the case.
Yeah, you say you sort of like came up with the sort of like the version of hell for these two main characters as just being stuck in a loop at a wedding at Palm Springs. And you say it was for a wedding season, and like I believe Andy's wedding was also at Palm Springs. Like, so yeah. Was his wedding that bad?
It was only bad for me because I was in the string of a string of failed relationships, and I felt very far away from that. And I actually was filming his wedding for him, so I was privy to an incredibly beautiful and emotional moment where he saw his wife in her wedding dress for the first time, the first look, they say in the wedding videography parlance. And it was incredible. It was 3 of us, and I just was filming this incredibly intimate moment, and in the back of my mind being like, this is the best day of his life. And I hope I get there one day. And what's great is that when we went in to go make the movie, I ended up falling in love, and now I'm engaged to be married. But so I came to understand that side of it. But his wedding was great. I just was a cynical bastard at the time.
Just like Niles,
exactly, yeah.
Just like Niles's journey, the film.
We've all been there. Weddings are this. I feel like are this, whether you're cynical or not, they are this mirror that kind of that you're forced to look into and kind of instinctually just kind of reflect on where you are in your relationships and your life. It's like any big life event.
Yeah, and I think Niles had it better than you because, like, at least he didn't have a role in the wedding, so he could just go do whatever he wanted, and no one's like looking for him too much or too concerned about him. But like
he chose to have the role,
he
chose to give the speech.
Yes, you can come do stuff as you want and not. Whereas the videographer goes missing. There's lots of calls, people driving around.
Exactly.
I did ask Andy when I spoke with Andy Ciara yesterday if he had any questions for you, and he said he didn't because, like, he'd know the answer to anything you could possibly ask. So, is there anything that Andy Ciara doesn't know about you, or doesn't know about the process?
Oh my God. I don't think so. I mean, like, that's crazy to admit, but there's just such stuff. Like, the thing that I know makes him laugh the hardest, weirdly, and this is barely even in the movie, but on a script level, was when we were polishing it up, we gave Peter Gallagher, who plays Howard in the movie, the father of the bride, like a glass of water and like a wet washcloth behind his neck and it just feels like such a dad thing to do while you're setting up for the wedding, is just be getting a lot of satisfaction out of taking a big sip of water and enjoying that washcloth. And it's like, we know each other that well. It's down to that where I it's not even a moment in the movie, but I could see Peter in the background and anticipate Andy getting a kick out of that, just a little details. And that's what's fun about this movie, is that's not an important Easter egg by any stretch of the imagination, but there's so much stuff in there to look for. But I don't think so, to be honest, which is kind of crazy. We're very vulnerable with one another on this project.
Yeah, he says that the film was a culmination of a creative friendship.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's very true.
What's one of the little things that you get a kick out of in the film?
I love a lot of the work that Colin Wilkes, our costume designer, did. There's a lot of little Easter eggs there, like Sarah's earrings have a little infinity sign, which is really cool. I'll go with that one.
Yeah, there you go, the earrings. I'm also meant to later this week be interviewing Kristen. Do you have a question that would be good to ask her?
Ask her what Rupert's favorite restaurant in Palmdale is.
Okay, I'll do it. We'll whack that in the middle.
Yeah. No intro to that question.
No, just like I'll just throw that in there. Okay,
exactly.
Fantastic. Is there what is the moment in the film that is your favorite?
Moment in the film that's my favorite. I think we were fortunate enough to see the movie with an audience a few times, but at Sundance in particular, when no one knew anything about it, they didn't know about the time loop or anything, and Niles getting hit by the arrow in the desert 15 minutes in, when Roy shows up, I think was my favorite then and still is now, because in a movie full of twists, that's kind of the biggest one. You think you're in a wedding rom-com, and then he gets hit with that arrow and it becomes something very different. So I like that a lot, I think.
And there's another moment because, like, as an audience member, it's taking a turn, but you're not quite sure what the turn is.
Exactly. Yeah. You're completely, we're thrust into it for sure.
Yeah. Is it? Are you annoyed because of that? That like, and they've sort of got to do this. It's not like a criticism, but like the trailer sort of gives away the premise. Like, is that like?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, you people get to experience the movie like everybody and we did at Sundance, where you're going in and you don't know anything about it. That's the best.
Yeah.
And what's cool is some people have reached out and said that they went into it blind, which is great. I don't know how you do that in this day and age. You kind of have to actively stay away from it, but we were assured by everybody who marketed the movie and was in charge of bringing it out into the world that there was no way they could promote it without kind of selling the time loop, and there's no way to really sell the time loop without that era moment. So we'll take it.
No. I get why they did it. What is there a particular like moment from the shoot that you just look back on fondly?
Yeah, I loved the moment. It's a bit in the montage where Connor O'Malley, who plays the the angry groomsman, Randy, who hits on Kristen's character at the beginning of the movie and then dances away with his elbow. He barges in. He's blindfolded and barges in on Meredith Hagner and Chris Pang, and we pull out and you see Andy and Kristen laughing, and that was just such a genuinely real laugh that they were sharing, and that I really liked that moment, just because that's what making stuff is about with your friends, right? Having fun. So that was cool to see.
Since it is a film about like repeating moments and going over again, what was the scene that sort of took the most takes to get right?
We did a lot, not to get right, but just to kind of like get through and give ourselves the pieces that we really needed to make it work. Andy's wedding speech was a monster. And they at the beginning and a beast. He did a great job. But there were even, I don't know what to call them. They were like mosquito hawks. They were bugs like this big, and you're not seeing them in the movie because we VFX them out, but giving him obstacles to deal with that day. But there's just a lot going on in that scene. You're kind of establishing the wedding, the guests at the wedding, all these characters, this character in Niles, and also there's this subtext there where he's hitting on this other character that you don't know much about. So there were a lot of pieces together. So we spent a lot of time on that. I'd probably go with that.
Did you learn anything about yourself in making the film?
Did I learn anything about myself?
Yeah.
Totally. To what would that be? That's a great question. That's probably a question that I have not been asked since the movies come out. Yeah, like I said, I fell in love as we went off to go make this movie, and now I'm gonna be married, and it's been a profound plunge to take, which is kind of like that commitment is what the movie about. Like I said before, I didn't really understand that part of it when we set off to go make it when we were writing it. So if anything, I understand kind of what the movie on a real personal level is about, which is, kind of like love opens you up and sets you free, for sure. And kind of that trust in collaborators does as well.
Yeah. That's good. It's good. Andy wrote the script. He was a bit further ahead of you in the love department, and then by the time it got to filming, you'd gotten there.
You caught up. Yeah.
So that's great. What do you think the big sort of, and it's sort of like, this might be a bit repetitive what we just talked about, but what do you think the big lesson of the film is, or the big sort of take home from Palm Springs?
Yeah, I think it kind of what I was just saying, it's what we were after from the get-go, despite wanting to throw everything we ever wanted to see in a movie into this one, from dinosaurs to torture, to, underwater camera work. It's that, taking a character who doesn't care about anything, he finds purpose in caring through love. Love is, in a very confusing world, learning to love yourself and loving others is just super rewarding, and it's super important. It can kind of open your eyes and set you free. I think and it's worth doing.
Well, Max, thanks so much for talking with us today about Palm Springs. All the best of luck with the upcoming awards, Oscars, Golden Globes, all the other film honors that are coming down the pipelines. And people watching this interview can go to goldderby.com, where you can make your own awards predictions, watch other contender interviews, and join the discussion in our forums. Thanks.
Thanks so much, man.